I found it by accident. Ashley had tossed her coat onto the entryway bench like she always did, and the next morning I reached into the pocket looking for the parking pass we always forgot to take out. Instead, I pulled out a crumpled little rectangle of paper. A receipt. Harmless, I figured. But when I smoothed it out, my stomach flipped. It was from a restaurant in Boston, one of those trendy, in asterisk mate spots with a one-word name, the kind you have to book a week in advance. A place we'd never been to. The receipt was for 2 cocktails, 1 dessert, and a tip that suggested whoever paid wasn't in a rush. The date and time were right there, Friday night. 8:47 p.m. The same Friday Ashley told me she was working late on a team project. That little piece of thermal paper sat in my hand like a loaded G***N. And suddenly everything about that night replayed in my head with too much clarity. She'd texted me around 6, "Don't wait up, this project is brutal. Love you." I remembered how I'd replied, "All good, hope it's not too late. Love you too." That was it. No calls, no check-ins, no FaceTime like she used to. I figured she was busy. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We've been together almost 6 years. Married for 3. She's the kind of woman who remembers birthdays without a calendar, who leaves sticky notes with dumb inside jokes on the fridge, who once cried over a dog food commercial. Trust was never a question. Until now. I stared at the receipt like it might offer a better explanation if I read it enough times. I even checked the timestamp again. Maybe it was old. Maybe it fell out of someone else's coat. But no, her name was on it. Digital payment. Her bank card. 2 drinks. 1 dessert. For 2 people. Later that day, when she came back from her Sunday errands, I left the receipt sitting on the kitchen table. I didn't say a word. I wanted to see how she'd react unprovoked. Ashley barely blinked. "Oh, that," she said casually, glancing down at it like it was an overdue gas bill. "That was from work. Jared's team hit some numbers and took us all out. You know how he is, wants to reward performance, like he's on The Office or something." Her tone was breezy, amused even. "Jared, right?" I'd heard his name more often lately, but never with that much familiarity. A new manager. Maybe early 30s. From New York. She'd mentioned he was a little intense when he first took over, but never in a bad way. Never like this. Still, I let her talk. She plopped her purse on the counter and kicked off her shoes, walking past me like we weren't standing in the middle of a potential storm. It was just a quick thing, nothing fancy. I didn't even stay long. What's with the look? I didn't know what my face looked like at that moment, but apparently it was enough to trigger something in her. She leaned against the fridge, crossed her arms. "You don't think I'd lie to you, do you?" That caught me off guard. The way she said it wasn't defensive. It was almost disappointed. Like I had done something wrong by even having a question in my head. "Scott," she said, her voice a notch softer now, "you're being paranoid." Seriously. It was a work dinner. I didn't even finish the cocktail, if you want to know. Jared ordered dessert for the table and I had like 2 bites. I didn't respond. Just nodded and picked up a mug from the sink like I was more interested in rinsing dishes than hearing whatever spin she was giving me. She watched me for a second, then shrugged and walked upstairs. Not a flicker of guilt. Not a single stumble in her story. But here's the thing, Ashley is a terrible liar. She can't even lie about Christmas presents. I know her tells. The way her voice gets high when she's nervous. The way she taps her left foot when she's buying time to think. But this version of Ashley? She was calm. Too calm. That's when the weight in my chest settled. Heavy and certain. Something was wrong. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after she went upstairs. The dishwasher hummed softly beside me and the receipt sat on the counter like it was mocking me. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to accept the story. Just another corporate happy hour, right? But if that were true, why not mention it before I found the receipt? Why not tell me Jared had taken them out for drinks if it was all so innocent? Why was the receipt still in her pocket? I tossed it in the trash. Not because I believed her, but because looking at it made my throat tight. Made me feel like I was choking on the truth I wasn't ready to admit. That night, we watched a show together. Something mindless. She curled up next to me like nothing had happened. Laughed in the right places. Kissed me goodnight and said she was exhausted. But for the first time in years, I didn't fall asleep. I just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment that suddenly felt off. Every late night, every weekend work obligation, every name she mentioned casually and never again. I told myself I was overthinking it. That maybe I was being paranoid. But deep down I knew. When you've lived with someone long enough, loved them long enough, you can feel when they start pulling away, even if their body is still next to you in bed. You feel it in the silences. In the new habits they don't explain. In the way they look at their phone like it holds secrets you're not supposed to see. Ashley had changed. And the worst part was I hadn't seen it coming. Maybe I didn't want to. Looking back, I should have seen it earlier. You always hear people say that, right? That there were signs. Hints. Little red flags waving in the wind that they chose to ignore. I never thought I'd be that guy. I thought Ashley and I were solid. Sure, we had our ups and downs, who doesn't after a few years? But this creeping feeling in my chest like I was living with a stranger? That was new. After the receipt incident, I started noticing things I'd brushed off before. And once you start paying attention, you can't stop. Every moment becomes evidence. Every silence becomes suspicion. For starters, she stopped asking about my day. That used to be her thing. We'd sit at the kitchen island, me nursing a beer, her flipping through a salad she barely touched, and we'd just talk. Nothing dramatic. Just life. Work, people, stupid stuff our neighbors did. But slowly, that ritual faded. I'd come home and she'd already be upstairs. Or on a Zoom call. Or in the middle of just 5 more minutes of a workout that always ended after I went to bed. Then came her phone. It was always with her. Like physically on her person. Even in the bathroom. Even in the shower, sometimes resting on a towel on the counter with the screen turned away. And it was always on silent. No more buzzing, no more notification dings. And if I so much as glanced at it, she'd shift casually like it was no big deal, but just enough to block my view. I didn't realize how often she was doing it until I caught myself flinching every time her phone lit up. Then there was Jared. God. Jared. His name started popping up all the time. Not just in passing like before, but constantly. At first, it was complaints, ugh, Jared wants another meeting, or Jared keeps pushing deadlines like we're robots. Normal manager stuff. But then the tone changed. She started talking about him with this weird sort of admiration. Jared's actually really smart, you know? Or Jared just gets things done. He doesn't sit on decisions forever. That one stuck with me. And the weirdest part? The way her eyes lit up when she talked about him. Not giddy, not teenage crush kind of lighting, but more like she was imagining something. Reliving something. Like his name meant more than just a guy in a suit holding a clipboard. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself she was just venting. Or maybe she finally had someone at work who understood her. She's ambitious, always has been. Maybe Jared was just a mentor. That's what I told myself. Over and over again. But my gut kept twisting. She started dressing different too. A little more effort in the mornings. New perfume. Lipstick I hadn't seen before. I made the mistake of saying, "You look nice today," once, and she smiled like I was some harmless idiot who couldn't possibly understand. "Oh, thanks," she said, already halfway out the door. That smile haunted me for days. She stopped wearing her wedding ring to work. Said it got in the way when she typed. Which okay, fine. But she'd worn it through 3 promotions and 1,000 emails before. Why was it bothering her now? I remember one night in particular. It was a Thursday. I'd picked up Ty on the way home, set the table, even threw on some music because I was trying. I was trying so damn hard to feel normal. She walked in late, looked exhausted, and gave me that smile again. The one that doesn't reach her eyes. "Sorry," she said, kissing my cheek like she was clocking in. Traffic was awful. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She didn't even glance at it, just reached in, silenced it, and pulled out her laptop instead. I tried. I really did. "So how was work?" She barely looked up. "Busy. Same old." "Anything exciting?" "Nope. Just meetings." And that was it. That was the entire conversation. She didn't ask how my day was. Didn't ask about the project I'd been pulling late nights on for 2 weeks. Didn't even notice that I'd shaved my beard, which she always used to tease me about. She was somewhere else. I could feel it. That night, I heard her laugh in the other room. I walked down the hall and found her in the guest room, phone to her ear, lights off except for the screen glow. She jumped when she saw me in the doorway. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light. "Everything okay?" She nodded quickly, too quickly. "Yeah, just catching up with Jenna." Jenna, her friend from college. The one she hadn't spoken to in months before this. Whatever this was, suddenly, they were on the phone every other night. "I'll let you get back to it," I said. She smiled again, but it was tight. Forced. "Thanks, babe." I went back to bed. But I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the pieces. The late nights. The phone habits. The way she avoided eye contact when she said, "I love you" now, like she was reading from a script she didn't believe anymore. I started keeping mental notes. Tuesday. Phone call in the bathroom for 23 minutes. Came out looking flushed. Wednesday said she had a team dinner. Didn't bring leftovers like she always does when it's real. Friday wore heels to work. She never wears heels. The problem with noticing things is that once you start, you can't unnotice them. You can't go back to ignorance. And every time she smiled at me, it felt like I was watching someone else wearing her face. I didn't want to be the guy snooping through her things. That's not who I am. Or at least, that's not who I was. But something about the silence, her silence, made me feel like I was being erased. Like I was part of a life she didn't want anymore but hadn't figured out how to walk away from yet. And maybe the worst part? I started lying too. I started saying, I love you out of habit, not feeling. I started staying late at work just to avoid coming home to her absence in person. I started pretending to believe her stories, just so I wouldn't have to ask questions I didn't want the answers to. Because deep down I already knew. I just didn't have the proof. Not yet. It was a Sunday when everything snapped. I remember because I had just come back from visiting my parents. Alone. Ashley said she couldn't make it, claimed she had some catching up to do on a work presentation. Which was fine. At least it used to be fine. But now every excuse landed differently. Like she was just pulling words out of a hat and hoping I wouldn't question it. I walked in with a grocery bag and saw her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. No makeup, hair in a bun, wearing a sweatshirt I didn't recognize. That struck me first. Not the phone. Not even the vibe. The sweatshirt. It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers. It was a little too big, a little too new. It didn't belong here. She didn't even look up. Hey! She mumbled, still staring at the screen. I stood there for a second longer than I should have, just watching her. Ashley? I said quietly. Can we talk? That got her attention. She paused, phone still in hand. Sure. What's up? I sat down across from her, heart thudding like a drum in my chest. I'd run through this 1,000 times in my head. The words, the timing, the possible outcomes. None of it made it easier. I know you're cheating on me. Her reaction wasn't what I expected. No gasping. No outrage. No denial. She just looked at me, blankly. And that silence? It was louder than any screaming match could have been. I waited, giving her space to speak, to explain, to lie. But she didn't. She just slowly set the phone down beside her, took a breath and said it. You're not the kind of man I need. That was her response. Not, I'm sorry. Not, you're wrong. Not even, it's complicated. Just that. Like I was some underqualified candidate who didn't make it past the second round. I felt the air leave my lungs. My vision went hot and blurry. What does that mean? I asked, though I already knew. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes flicked past me, toward the window, toward the world outside where this conversation wasn't happening. Then she said, I need a real man, not a partner, not a husband, not someone who held her hand during her dad's cancer treatments, or stayed up with her when her anxiety spiraled, or fixed the sink, or picked her up from the airport at 2 a.m. in the snow. Apparently, none of that made me real. Before I could even wrap my head around that slap of a sentence, the front door opened. Her mother walked in, right on cue, like she'd been waiting outside for her line in the play. I came to support my daughter, she said, her voice thin and sharp like piano wire. She's been through a lot, Scott. I blinked. Through a lot. Her father followed close behind, arms crossed, face set in that permanent grim frown he wore at our wedding. I remember thinking even then, this guy doesn't want me here. He looked around like he was taking inventory of the furniture, then said, You know, Scott, if you'd been paying more attention, maybe she wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. And there it was, the blame, laid out plain and heavy, like I drove her into someone else's arms. Like I was the one who broke the vows. I stood there, numb. 3 people I'd once considered family now lined up against me, as if I was the intruder in my own damn house. They weren't angry. They weren't even emotional. They were resolved. Like they had rehearsed this. Like they'd agreed that I was the villain and today was just the final scene. You all knew. I asked quietly, voice shaking. Her mom sighed like I was being dramatic. It's not about knowing. It's about understanding. Understanding. That word lit a fire in my chest. Because I had bent over backward trying to understand Ashley. Every mood swing, every late night, every time she brushed me off and called it stress. I gave her space. I gave her patience. And now I was being told I should have understood her betrayal too? I stood up. Not fast. Not angry. Just steady. Ashley didn't move. She watched me with this flat expression like she was curious what I'd do next. Like she was waiting for me to yell. To cry. To fall apart. I didn't give her that. I hope he's worth it, I said. Whoever he is. Her father scoffed. Don't be petty. I looked him in the eye. I'm not being petty. I'm being done. And with that, I walked past them, past the woman I married, past the in-laws I used to call on holidays, past the ghost of the life I thought I had, and headed for the front door. Ashley didn't follow. She didn't call out. She just stood by the stairs, arms crossed, watching. And in that moment, I realized something that hurt even more than the cheating. She wanted me to explode. She was waiting for it. Waiting for the drama, the chaos, the meltdown. Something to justify what she'd done. Something she could point to and say, see? That's why I left. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. I opened the door and stepped outside. The sunlight was harsh and cold, but it felt clean. Honest. Behind me, the door clicked shut. That sound was louder than any of the words they threw at me. Louder than her mother's judgment. Louder than the silence Ashley gave me. Louder than the betrayal itself. It was over. Not with a fight. Not with a slammed plate or a sobbing confession. Just a single sentence and a shut door. I got in my car and sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me together. Then my phone buzzed. Ashley. I didn't answer. Then her mom. Ignored. Then her sister, who hadn't spoken to me in months, now suddenly needed to tell me what a coward I was for walking away. The texts came in waves. You can't just leave. This is childish. Be an adult and talk about it. Then the tone shifted. We're sorry. She was struggling. She didn't mean to hurt you. Too late. They had their say. Now it was my turn to be silent. I didn't drive far. Just a few blocks, then I parked under a tree near the edge of a grocery store lot and sat there with the engine running. My hands stayed on the wheel, knuckles white, like I was still bracing for impact, like someone might chase after me, force me back inside, tell me none of it had happened. But no one came. And the longer I sat there, the clearer it became, I wasn't going back. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Ashley had said her piece. Her parents had taken their turns. They didn't scream or cry. They didn't even look surprised. That was what broke me, really, not the betrayal, but the ease of it. Like this had been decided long ago and they were just waiting for me to catch up. And when I finally did, no one blinked. I don't remember when I turned off the engine. Or how long I stared through the windshield at nothing. But eventually, my body reminded me I hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, hadn't breathed properly in hours. So I moved. I drove to a cheap motel off the interstate and checked in without saying more than 2 words to the front desk clerk. The room was beige and cold with a flickering lamp and a bed that smelled faintly of someone else's deodorant. It was perfect. I dropped my bag on the floor, just a hoodie, my laptop, and a few things I'd thrown into a duffel in the heat of leaving. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just left. That's how I know it was the right thing to do. Because when it's time to go, you don't make a checklist. You just go. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the blank TV screen, watching my own reflection flicker in and out with the passing headlights from the road outside. I kept hearing that phrase over and over again in my head. You're not the kind of man I need. What kind of man did she need then? One who turned a blind eye? One who didn't notice her coming home late with a new glow on her skin? One who never asked questions when her stories started to contradict themselves? Or maybe just one who wasn't me. The funny thing is, I wasn't even angry. Not really. I was hollow. Like someone had reached inside and scraped everything out, leaving only the shell. Anger takes energy. Rage burns. But this was just quiet. A stillness I hadn't felt in months. And somewhere in that silence I realized I didn't need closure. I didn't need an explanation. The people who'd stood in my living room and looked at me like I was the problem, they weren't going to offer anything honest. Not now. Maybe not ever. And I wasn't about to beg for understanding from people who had already chosen their sides. So I got up, brushed my teeth, sat back down on the bed and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally dragged me under like an anchor pulling at my chest. The next morning, I woke up to 23 messages. Ashley, her mom, her sister, 3 from her dad, short, clipped sentences that read more like orders than apologies. The first few were accusations. You just left. You're not even going to try? You're acting like a child. Then the mood changed. Can we talk? You owe us a conversation. Please don't do this like a coward. But I wasn't the one who cheated. I wasn't the one who brought backup to deliver the news like it was some HR performance review. And yet, somehow, I was the one being asked to explain myself. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started looking for places to stay long-term. Airbnbs, extended stays, maybe even sublets. Anywhere that wasn't that house, that kitchen, that bed, the guest room that had started to feel more like mine than ours. There's something strange about leaving quietly. People expect a scene. They expect slammed doors and shouted words and dramatic ultimatums. They expect something they can point to and say, see, that's why it ended. But silence? Silence makes them uncomfortable. Silence leaves them with themselves. And maybe that's why I didn't respond. Not out of spite, not out of pride, but because my absence said more than any words could. I pictured Ashley waking up and checking her phone, waiting for the text that didn't come, watching the clock, wondering if I was driving back, wondering if I was cooling off, telling herself that I'd come around, that I'd forgive her eventually, like I always did. She didn't understand yet. There was no coming around this time. That afternoon, I returned to the house once, briefly. She wasn't there. Her car was gone, probably at work, or with him. I let myself in with my key. The place looked exactly as I'd left it. Couch cushions slightly off, her mug on the table, the coat she always wore thrown over the dining chair. It still smelled like her perfume and vanilla candles. I didn't linger. I walked straight to the bedroom and grabbed the rest of my stuff. Shoes, laptop charger, a few shirts I'd forgotten. I paused only once, when I saw our wedding photo on the dresser. The one where she's laughing mid-sentence, and I'm staring at her like she hung the damn moon. I took it out of the frame and left it face down on the dresser. Let her wonder what that meant. Before I left, I locked the door behind me. Then I drove away without looking back. She didn't call that night, but her sister did. Twice. Then her mom sent me a long message about how relationships take work, and how I was abandoning a woman who just made a mistake. She said Ashley was going through a confusing time and needed my patience. I blocked her. Then I blocked her dad. Then Ashley. One by one, I cut off every path they could use to pull me back into their narrative. Because that's what it had become, their story. Their version of events, where I was cold, unfeeling, unreasonable. Where Ashley was the wounded one. Where cheating was rebranded as a moment of weakness, and betrayal became a symptom of something I caused. I didn't need to defend myself to that, and I wasn't going to play the part they'd written for me. I chose silence. I chose the door. And for the first time in months, I chose myself. The first message came while I was eating breakfast at a diner near the motel. It was early, barely 7 a.m. I was sipping burnt coffee, staring out the window at a parking lot full of tired cars and even more tired people, when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't check it. I already knew who it was. Ashley. Scott, please talk to me. You can't just disappear like this. I didn't respond, just locked the screen and slid it back into my pocket. She hadn't cared about talking when she was slipping out at night. She hadn't asked me to sit down and talk when she lied to my face about the receipt. When she stood in front of her parents and let them tear into me like I was a burden she couldn't wait to drop. She didn't speak up then. But now she wanted a conversation. Now, when her plans were falling apart. An hour later came another one. We both said things we didn't mean. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just felt lost. Confused. And there it was again, that word. Confused. Like her betrayal was some kind of spiritual fog she accidentally wandered into. Like it wasn't planned, repeated, and hidden with intention. Like I was supposed to believe this was all some dream she hadn't woken up from yet. Around noon, the texts turned into calls. First from her, then from her mom, then, surprisingly, from her sister Emily, a woman who hadn't said more than 5 words to me in the last year. She left a voicemail that sounded like it was ripped straight from a bad soap opera. Scott, listen, I know things got messy, but she's hurting. She's really hurting. Can't you just talk to her? You two have been through so much together. You're stronger than this. I listened to it once. Deleted it. By late afternoon, the tone of everything shifted. Gone were the soft pleas and explanations. Now came the guilt. You're acting like a child. Be a man and have a real conversation. Running away doesn't solve anything. And then, from Ashley, I can't believe you'd just walk away like this. After everything we've been through. Funny how everything we've been through only mattered now that I wasn't standing in front of her like a punching bag. Back then, when I was begging for eye contact and conversation, it didn't count. But now that I was gone, it was sacred history. I muted my phone. For the rest of the day, I didn't check it once. Instead, I drove around. No destination. Just windows down. Wind in my face. Music I hadn't listened to in years humming from the speakers. Songs I used to love but forgot about in the daily noise of marriage, mortgages, chores, obligations. They felt like mine again. It's strange how quiet the world gets when you stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. Around 9 p.m., I checked my phone again. 16 new messages. Some angry, some apologetic, some trying to play both sides. I didn't mean what I said. My parents were out of line. We can fix this. Please don't give up on us. And one that stopped me cold. He's gone. Jared's gone. He doesn't want anything serious. He just wanted to have fun. I read it twice, then a third time, not because I cared, but because I wanted to see if there was even a trace of responsibility in it. There wasn't. It wasn't I messed up. It wasn't I chose wrong. It was he left. I lost. So now I want you back. And I think that was the moment it all truly clicked into place. Ashley didn't miss me. She missed the version of me that held everything together. The man who paid bills on time. Who made her laugh when she was spiraling. Who brought her medicine when she had a cold and held her hand in waiting rooms. She missed the stability, not the man. Because the man, the one who stood in her living room while she dismantled our marriage without blinking, she never looked back at him. Not until Jared walked away. That night, I blocked her number. Blocked her mom. Her sister. Everyone who thought they had a vote in what I did next. The silence was immediate. Beautiful. Pure. No more vibration in my pocket. No more little red badges piling up like stress points on my screen. Just stillness. Me and the motel TV humming in the background, playing some late-night documentary I wasn't watching. I slept harder than I had in weeks. The next morning, I didn't wake up with dread in my chest. I didn't check my phone first thing. I didn't rehearse imaginary conversations in my head. I didn't even think about what she might be doing, who she might be texting now. Instead, I got up, made a plan, and started looking for cities where I could start fresh. I didn't want to stay local. Everyone here knew someone who knew someone. I didn't want to bump into people at the grocery store who used to know us as Scott and Ashley. I didn't want polite nods or whispered rumors or friends trying to stay neutral. I wanted clean air, new buildings, a place where I could walk down the street and not feel like I was carrying her ghost on my back. I made a list. Cities I'd always liked. Places I'd visited once and thought maybe one day. And then I picked one. Austin. It was warm. It was far. It had good food and live music and strangers who wouldn't know my story unless I chose to tell it. I made some calls. Found a short-term rental. A job listing that didn't make me want to pull my teeth out. Booked a moving truck. Started packing. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends. Not my family. Not Ashley. Especially not Ashley. She didn't get to be a part of this chapter. That was the most peaceful part of all of it. Not the leaving, but the fact that I could leave without needing permission. No explanations. No promises. No more waiting for a woman who didn't even have the decency to lie well. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just free. A month after I left, a mutual friend, Mike, called me out of the blue. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey," he said carefully, not trying to stir anything, but, "You might want to know, Ashley's not doing so hot." I didn't say anything. "She thought Jared would stick around," he continued. Turns out he bailed the second he found out you were really gone. Guess he wasn't into the full-time boyfriend role. Just the fun. Figures. Mike told me Ashley moved out of our house and into a tiny apartment across town. She couldn't afford the mortgage on her own. Her parents? The ones who stood beside her while she humiliated me? Yeah, they moved to Florida 2 weeks after I left. New chapter, they said. She called them for help. They didn't pick up. Suddenly, Ashley didn't have anyone. No Jared. No supportive family. No husband. Just the echo of her choices. It should have made me feel something. Anger, satisfaction, pity maybe. But honestly, I felt nothing. Not because I'm cold, but because I had finally reached that place you don't come back from. Closure. Moving to Austin was the best decision I've ever made. I rented a small place near the east side, nothing fancy, but quiet. Got a job with a local tech startup. The people were laid back, the work was challenging, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was building something for me. No more walking on eggshells. No more guessing if I was being lied to. No more pretending things were okay when they weren't. I didn't try to heal. I just lived. Met new people. Took deep breaths. Rediscovered who I was before I got so wrapped up in keeping a relationship alive that had already flatlined. Ashley stayed behind in the ruins she created. I didn't wait for an apology. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even need to say goodbye. I had already said everything I needed to by walking away. And I never looked back.